They were very supportive of me. That's like the first thing is, with my mom, she didn't have the support of her parents, but I felt both my mom and my dad were both very supportive. Either way, whether I was going to try and keep the baby or whether I was going to go for adoption.
Welcome to another episode of Relentlessly Resilient, where real people share real-life experiences and the tools they've developed to move forward and live their best lives. We are presented by Minky Couture. I'm Jennie Taylor.
I'm Michelle Scharf. Are you looking for something beautiful and cozy to add to your home on these polar days? Minky Couture is the answer. Cozy, soft, a color for every room in your home, and always the best. Visit Minky Couture.
Okay, you got 6 locations right along the Wasatch Front and St. George, or you can just go to minkycouture.com if you don't even want to leave the house.
That's awesome. I'm so excited. We have a part 2 today of Heather Andrews and Kiara Williamson. They have overlapping stories. It's a mother and daughter, and overlapping stories about teenage pregnancy and adoption. So, Heather, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story. Where does your story cross over with your daughters?
Yeah. I mean, I remember telling my girls when they were very young, I never wanted to be a parent that kept things from my kids. Mm-hmm. I always felt like I needed to be open and share with them. I've heard stories about, when I experienced it, where, things were shared later on, and it can often traumatize children. And so it was like, it was really important to me to be honest and upfront with my kids from day one, when they, obviously at the appropriate ages, when they could understand. And so I remember telling my girls about my experience, and that they had a stepbrother somewhere, but that it was a closed adoption. I had no contact with him, and I didn't know anything about him. But yeah, you want to go from there?
Yeah, I definitely remember when my mom sat us down and kind of told us about our half-brother that we had. It was an age where I definitely did understand a little bit more, but it still kind of was a little bit traumatizing, not going to lie, to hear that, we had this half-brother that we didn't know about all the way up until this point. And we were LDS at that point, so we were active members of the church. And so that, too, was kind of like so we're learning all these things about the church and kind of the standards and the morals that you have in the LDS church. And then kind of just hearing that, it was like, why didn't she share that before? Why did she kind of feel like she needed to keep that from us? And now kind of hearing her story a little bit more, after the fact and all that shame, that definitely makes a lot more sense where, she just wasn't used to probably talking about it. And it was probably really hard for her to talk about it too. So yeah, that's when I heard about it. And grew up knowing that I had a half brother, and that was really cool. And that was something that I'd tell, my friends in school, like, oh yeah, I have a half brother. And it'd just be something that I'd just randomly remember about. But
yeah, I said stepbrother, it's half brother. I always get those.
Yeah, half brother.
I always get those family relationship things wrong. Like, what is this? Second cousin, once removed, twice removed. What? So yeah. Anyway, so half brother.
So you knew about him, but you didn't. There was no open communication with him or the family after those early months and years, right?
No, and basically you were aware of it. Did you feel like you really needed to tell them because he might show up in their lives? Or?
No. And in fact, I think there was this document that I could do. It was like a codex or something like that. It was some document I remember I had to fill out that if he were 18 and wanted to get a hold of me at the time when he reached adulthood, that my contact information would be made available to him. Mm-hmm. So I remember registering for that, maybe right around the time that I thought he might be getting old enough to where he might start thinking about this and might want to look me up and might want to have that information on how to reach me.
But that would be on him to decide, right. Not you. Okay.
Right. Yep. And so I did that, but I think I really just felt like when I told my girls, I felt like they were old enough to potentially be able to understand what was, and process the information. And it sounds like it still doesn't matter. I think at any time you tell anyone anything like that, it's going to be a little traumatizing. Sure, and they're going to be like, have a lot of questions and be like, what is going on here? Yeah. Which I think she did. They did ask a lot of questions, and I tried to answer them to the best of my ability. But it is hard when you don't really know much. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
And I think I'd closed a lot of that part of me off because it's easier to handle emotionally when you're not. I mean, I was told, you can write letters, you can write journal about it. And I just didn't want to open that up again.
Yeah.
It was so painful that it was like, why? Why would I even do that? And I had done a lot of things. Like I had, even later on, obviously, anytime we stuff things, it's going to come out.
Right.
It's going to come out in some way. And you're going to emote on everyone. So it's like, I remember like having some deep anxiety, depression issues. What is wrong with me? Like debilitating, to the point where it was debilitating. And I know it was from a lot of that unhealed trauma. And so I did seek, help, got some counseling therapy. I love energy work. I'm very much a profound fan of that. That was where some of my most healing moments happened. And it's like, to me, it's like 6 months of therapy and counseling in one session, especially when they know what they're doing, and really reached in and got a lot of those emotions cleared. And I let it go, and it was beautiful. I didn't know anything. And I remember Kiara would ask questions, and then she was like, I think she went on her own little investigation journey eventually.
Yes. Yeah. So fast forward. So yeah, when I got older, I actually didn't start looking for Kyler, my half brother, until after I placed my baby for adoption. It was just kind of like, I felt that it would be really good for my mom to be able to, have that connection and have that meet up with him, kind of heal some of those past traumas that she had. And so I remember just stalking her Facebook account. I found the parents, and then I found his account through their account. And I sent him a message on Facebook just saying like, hey, like, what's up? I'm your half sister. I didn't really know what to say, so I just kind of put it out there. And it wasn't until, I think it was a day after my birthday, that I got a response from him. And I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh. And he was excited too. He's like, I'm so happy you reached out. Like, text me. So yeah, we started texting, and he was awesome. We talked, and I let my mom know, I think, that I was talking to him, and asked her, I'm like, would you feel up to maybe having him over for dinner sometime, or kind of having a meetup? I'm like, I know he would really love to meet you, and he really wants to get in contact with you. So yeah, I gave him or her his number or whatever, and they kind of started talking. And yeah, we eventually scheduled a time where he came over with his wife. And
yeah, his new wife.
Yeah, his wife. And we got to meet our half brother, and my mom got to meet her son for the first time. And it was an amazing experience. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. There are no words. Like, honestly, like, it was magical. And yeah, we sat down around the table, and I think, I just was open to, what questions do you have? And, he was able to ask me questions about, surrounding, obviously, the situation, and, why. I'm sure there's a lot of kids that are placed for adoption that they feel in a way abandoned. They don't know. They struggle with understanding. And so I think that's important. It was important for him to hear my side of the story and understand where I was coming from. But it was healing for me. I think it was healing for him. It was amazing to also hear about all the things that my kids and him have in common without even knowing each other.
Yeah.
So
some of the same sports teams and things that they're into, and the sports and the hobbies and the activities and the things that he's good at. There was a lot of cross in that. And my son, I have 3 girls, and then my youngest is a boy. And so I watched him light up, because, he all of a sudden now has this he's always wanted it, like an older brother, or like, someone, a boy, any kind of male in his life that's not
a girl, dressing him up in dresses.
And so he was so happy.
Lots of sisters. Yes.
He was so happy to connect with Kyler, and to have that experience of meeting him and find out they had so much in common. And it was really awesome.
Well, that was so fun. So, Kiara, tell us your story. How did you end up on a similar path?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because my mom, having her experience, she was always kind of telling me as I was growing up, because she could see I was a lot like my mom. Like, I'm definitely a mini mom, my mom. And so she could see a lot of the same things, I guess, in me that she was kind of doing, like that rebellious drive, whatever. And so she'd warn me. She'd say, hey, like, just so you know, like, she's very open up with me. Like, if you ever are interested in having sex, like, let me know. Like, we'll get you on a birth control. Like, I want you to be protected. Like, I don't want this to be something that you feel like you have to hide from me or feel like you can't, open up to me about. So, yeah, I'm super grateful for her for that. Because, yeah, once I did start getting into that, like, I started becoming interested.
You did get on birth control.
Yes, I did talk to my mom, and I was like, hey, like, I want to open up to you with this because you told me to. So I want to get on birth control. And so, yeah, she actually took me in. I was on the pill. So I was taking the pill at this time. And I had been dating this guy for only 2 months. And we were both LDS. His family was super strong in the church. My parents had started they were getting their divorce. It was pretty messy. And yeah, I definitely was rebelling like crazy. So yeah, I met this guy, dated him for like 2 months, and then my senior year of high school, so 2018, and it was February. We had only been dating for the 2 months. Yeah, I actually found out I was pregnant. I took the pregnancy test in a Walmart bathroom because me and him were in a fight that morning, and I had been like experiencing morning sickness. So yeah, I just took a pregnancy test at Walmart bathroom. My friend Angela was there, and yeah, just the feeling like that gut wrenching, like your stomach is just in knots. It's like, what am I gonna do? And it's that moment of realization of being that young, you don't think anything will ever happen to you. Like, you see all these people getting pregnant and you're like, oh, that will never happen to me. Like, I'm above this or whatever. And you just don't think. And when it happens, it's very scary. And so I just remember, talking to my boyfriend at the time and letting him know that, hey, I'm pregnant. And he actually took it really well. He said that he wanted to try and keep the baby and that, we want to try and work this out, and he wanted to try and get married and whatnot. And I was like, okay, awesome. And so, yeah, after talking to him, I ended up talking to my mom. She's the next person I told just because I knew she was going to know the best steps, like the next steps and whatnot. So I talked to her about it, then told my dad about it as well. But they were very supportive of me. That's like the first thing is, with my mom, she didn't have the support of her parents, but I felt both my mom and my dad were both very supportive. Either way, whether I was going to try and keep the baby or whether I was going to go for adoption. But at the beginning, me and my boyfriend were definitely wanting to keep the baby. And so he ended up getting a sales job out in Arizona, and he left. And I just remember being here, like, alone, just being pregnant, and I was like, I don't like this. Like, so I ended up going down to Arizona too, and I ended up doing some summer sales as well. So we were both working down there, trying to just make as much money as we could in the short amount of time that we had. Because when we found out we were pregnant, I remember I did not have really any money to my name, and we were living at his parents' house. So yeah, we were just trying to find anything that we could do to try and just make as much money as we could to be able to provide and support for this baby. And I just remember everything just went wrong. Like, nothing was working out. Like, the sales company we worked for ended up just not paying us for any of the sales we did while we were out there.
Oh, wow.
There is a ton of drugs going around while we were down there. Like, I did not feel safe as a pregnant woman being in that environment because there's a lot of smoking, drinking, partying when we weren't out doing sales. So I was just like, this is not an environment I want to be in anymore. I'm like, I want to get back home so I can be closer to my family because it was kind of hard being out there with not a lot of support, with just like my friends, and they were all, being crazy. And so we ended up coming back to Utah, and he got a job as a cook in a barbecue restaurant, and I got a job as a waitress at a Chinese restaurant. It was like right next door to each other. So yeah, we worked there for months, just again trying to make money. I ended up going from the waitressing job at the Chinese restaurant and went to waitress at the barbecue place he was at, so we can kind of work together. And yeah, even that, like the manager, our grill or our oven in the back ended up catching on fire and pretty much exploding the back half of the store. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, like, so I wasn't getting very much tips because like not a lot of people were coming because we were out of a lot of the foods that we usually had at a barbecue place. And then she ended up actually closing down that barbecue restaurant because just they couldn't
survive
without that oven. So when we went from like trying everything and then just nothing was working out, and we actually ended up being in a worse position after all that work and stuff, you know, than having any. So we were about, I think I was 6 or 7 months pregnant when I was finally like, okay, we need to start looking at other options, because at this point, if we're going to keep this baby, we're going to be, you know, living at our parents' house. Like, they're going to have to support us. Like, we're both going to have to work. Like, the baby's going to have to stay with your mom or something while we're working. But it wasn't going to be an ideal situation. It is, even if we stayed together, which at this point I wasn't sure, you know. I was still young. I didn't know if this was the man that I really wanted to marry. It was more of, at that point I felt like I had to. But yeah, when we started looking at families, we started out looking at the LDS Family Services because that's what my mom used, and that's what she kind of told me to use. And so, yeah, we sat down, we were just going through all these profiles, and I just remember at that time we were looking like for the wrong reasons, like for a couple for the wrong reasons. Meaning, I really was wanting someone who had the same skills and the same passions and things that I did. So I was in hair school at the time and loved doing hair. So I was looking for someone who also did hair and who loved doing like makeup and stuff like that. And then my boyfriend wanted a dad who liked the Polynesian culture and who played rugby because he liked to play rugby. So I don't know how we found a family or a couple that actually matched up perfectly. The mom had a at-home hair salon, and the dad had played rugby because he went on a mission and, yeah, was on a rugby team. And so we were like, let's meet up with them. Like, let's see how these people are. And so we reached out, and we ended up meeting with them at just like an ice cream shop. And I just remember it was very awkward. Remember that? I was very nervous, feeling very nervous meeting them. Yeah, it felt more like I was trying to like sell them on why they should adopt my baby. It was like kind of weird in that way. And they were kind of telling me, "Oh, we want an open adoption, but we just want you guys to be there for like her birthdays and Christmas and like just special occasions." And we're like, okay. Because at this time, I had only known about closed adoption. I knew a little bit about open, but didn't know how open an open adoption could be.
So that sounded kind of open.
Yes.
Sure.
That was like, oh,
compared
yeah, that's
to
great.
your mom's experience.
Yes. So I was like, that sounds great. But really on the inside, I did have like a want for more of an openness, like to be able to see her more often than that. But I didn't really express that just because I didn't know.
You just didn't know what the possibilities were, and
Yeah. And I at that time I was just stressing
felt a little
out.
bit pressure too. Like
be a lot of
you're
overwhelm.
like, I've looked at hundreds of profile and we only found this one people, and like, I hope they're the right ones, or like trying to make them the right ones rather than allowing yourself to like really choose because it feels
Be
right.
open to that.
Yes. And that's the biggest thing is I was not focusing on the feelings that I had at that time. It was more so like, yeah, I just liked them and what they had on their paper and what I saw. And so after meeting with them, I remember we did tell them, we're like, we want you to adopt our baby. And they told us, that's awesome, that's exciting, but before we give you guys an answer, we need to go pray about it in the temple. Like, we need to go to the temple, we need to go pray about it. And I was like, okay. And yeah, I remember them calling us and they told us, like, no, like, we got an answer and this isn't the baby for us.
Wow.
And we were like, what?
Wow.
Like, so taken back. I've never heard of that happening before.
Yeah, you hear of couples that just wait and wait and wait to find the baby.
Yes. And yeah, they had been waiting for a while too. Like, is what we knew, is that they had been waiting for a while. So we were like, what the heck? But that actually made me kind of upset at the time. But then it made me kind of sit back and think about my religion and kind of how I wasn't going to church anymore and how I'd kind of fallen away from that. And so this kind of opened up my eyes. I was like, okay, like, they got this answer and, they're being kind of guided, where I'm over here. I have no clue what I'm doing, feeling super lost. I didn't know. And so yeah, we decided to start going back to church. And so we did. And after we started going back to church, I stopped looking at the family services profiles. Like, that's just the feeling I had, was to stop looking. And I actually had my old friend, her name was Reagan from high school. Her brother had reached out to her because he knew that I was pregnant. And he told her, I know this couple. I served a mission with this guy, and they're looking to adopt a baby. Like, they just came out with it like a couple months ago, and I just wanted to pass that along and see if maybe Kiara was interested in talking to them. So she asked me. I was like, sure, like, give her my information. And so I got this text from this woman, and she was just like, hey, like, how are you doing? Like, my name is Adrian. Like, I just wanted to see how your pregnancy's going, like, see how you're doing. And I just had a really strong feeling to text her back. So I did. I was like, my pregnancy's going good. The baby's doing good. And she just asked, like, do you know, like, if you guys would be open to, like, meeting up with us sometime? And we were like, yeah. Like, we were still kind of iffy about it just from that last experience.
Yeah, tough experience before, sure.
Yeah. But we did. We ended up meeting with them, and just the feeling was so different. It was like a feeling of familiarity, like I had known them. It was like comforting. Like, I didn't feel like I was nervous at all. Just sat down with them and had a really great conversation. They opened up with us saying that, we've done a lot of adoption classes. We've talked to a lot of people who have adopted and who have open adoptions. And we have found that the more open we can be with this, the better it's going to be for all parties, and the better it's going to be for the child.
For the baby.
And that to me was like, yes, like, that's everything that I was kind of feeling and thinking. And I was like, these are the ones. So we had my whole family come, the baby daddy's family come together. We had both sides meet them. And then both sides of our family were like, yeah, we love them. They're amazing.
Wow.
And so, we told them, like, hey, we'd love for you guys to adopt. And they were so excited. And I believe this was 2 months before I was going to have my baby that we told them that we wanted them to adopt. And within those 2 months, they had her room all set up. They had, like, clothes, like, everything that she would ever need. And yeah, it was just really cool because, from my mom's side, she never got to meet the couple. For me, it was really cool because I was able to go over to their house before and see where they lived, see where Quinley, my baby was going to grow up. And I was able to go over. They had me over for dinners a lot just to, like, get to know each other better and become more familiar. So it was almost like they were adopting me into their family too. Like, that's how it felt. Like, it was like, it's this whole big family. I do feel like she's definitely somebody that I can go to for anything, just like a second mom to me. So same with Jason too. He's like such an amazing guy. So yeah, we feel super blessed to have like had them reach out to us and kind of how it all kind of worked itself out. But I definitely do think that
So you're not with the baby's dad anymore.
no.
Is he involved in this
In the open
family
adoption?
as much as you are?
No, unfortunately, yeah, he kind of stopped going over and seeing her a little bit after we broke up, which that was something that he did tell me was when we were together and we were thinking about breaking up. I did ask him, like, will this affect you seeing Quinley? And he'd always say, like, no, like, no matter what happens, I'll always go over and I'll always be in her life. And so it's really sad. Yeah, he doesn't really go over as much anymore.
He put the baby in the relationship with you, not his own relationship with the baby.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
how
that's
long has
kinda
it been?
sad.
You said this is 5 years ago?
Yes, so it's going on 6 years now.
Okay, so a couple questions. How's the baby in the family? How are you, and what has life looked like? That's a decent amount of time to have
Yeah.
passed.
Yeah,
Now, how are things?
they're amazing, honestly. So seeing her pictures, videos, whatever, anytime I go over there, like she loves Adrian and Jason, her adoptive parents, so much. And as well, they adopted a baby boy about 5 months after adopting my baby.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, Quinley has a little brother, and they're like kind of like Irish twins.
Oh,
So it's really cool to kind of see their relationship with each other, with both being adopted from, different families. Just seeing how fun, like just how they act. It's literally just like blood siblings. It's like you cannot tell a difference.
Right.
It's so cute. And for me, it does help a lot being able to go over and like to be able to see her and spend time with her. She still calls me like birth mom, and she'll ask me questions too about like when I was pregnant with her. She loves seeing pictures of when she was in my belly and just hearing about all of that. And she has asked some like questions like, why aren't you and my dad together anymore? Like, why did you guys break up? Why don't you love each other anymore? Yeah, she just asked these questions, and I'm like,
Kids are so innocent. They just ask. They don't dance around it. They just genuinely want to understand. There's no judgment.
Right.
It's just a curiosity.
yes. And so
And to have that open conversation. So what are you doing now? What does life look like for you in addition to this beautiful adopted
Yeah.
family that you're involved with?
yeah, so right now I'm just still trying to figure out life, to be honest. I just recently, got a job at this storage facility, so I'm like managing a storage unit or facility, and yeah, I like sometimes I picture like if I were to still have her, and there's no way. Like it's life is so stressful, and everything's so expensive. It's like I'm able to take care of myself sometimes. But I definitely feel like having it be an open adoption, I have been able to heal a lot quicker from it. And being able to see her too, especially in her family, and seeing how happy she is and how well taken care of she is, yeah, it helps me a lot. A big thing though that I have been doing since placing is just being able to talk about the experience itself. That's something, hearing about my mom, that would have been so hard to like have to go back home, not be able to talk to my siblings about it. Cause that was like a big thing for me, like being able to open up and like have that support from like my like parents, but also my siblings was huge. But yeah, just being able to talk openly about it has been such a huge, like just therapeutic thing for me. Like
We talk a lot about resiliency on the show, and the first step of resiliency is just acknowledging the situation for what it is, not judging it good or bad, right or wrong, but just being able to see the situation for what it is and owning up to this is the situation. So very different experiences between both your mom and you, whereas your mom really didn't have the opportunity to get the support when she did own up to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she wasn't trying to get around accountability with it.
Right.
She was just left alone with it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, just having that support, I imagine, was incredibly helpful.
It was huge.
Was the appeal of an open adoption because you did grow up knowing that your family had this half brother that you'd never been able to meet, and your curiosity surrounding who that mysterious person in the world that shared DNA with you was?
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
think?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely wanted more of an open adoption because if I ever did have my own kids, if I ever do, I do want them to know from the get-go that they have a half sister, and I want them to be able to meet Quinley and for them to kind of grow up with each other.
Right.
Because I would have loved that, to be able to have, my half brother in my life growing up, that would have been really cool. And I'm sure there was a lot, that I could have learned from him of having an older brother that I didn't get to learn. But yeah.
Yeah. I love that there's such a thread and connection for you to family and the importance of that family. And that was instilled in your mother, even though in some ways that system let her down when she most needed it. But she's always been able to be there for you and your siblings.
Yes.
Sometimes, and being her friend, and she just stepped out of the room for a call, so we're not talking around Heather's back for those that are listening. But so yeah, Heather stepped out of the room, so she's not here right now to weigh into this conversation. But she definitely has always been just a great supporter of all you kids. Tell us about. So I was aware of this situation when you got pregnant, and I kind of knew your mom had told me, she doesn't know what she's going to do yet, whatever. And then we were still in contact when you had decided to place the baby for adoption. And I had offered you to come on the show at that point. I had met you, and that was early in the beginning of our show, 3 years ago. Just never worked out, but I'm so glad. And when I stumbled upon your Instagram page the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to have these guys on, because it seems like this has really come full circle, where your mom had her situation. It was so unsupportive and so closed and so disconnected as a birth mother, really surrendering her child and wishing for the best, but never knowing. And then to where you are in this whole different situation, and you get to actually share photos. You're not having to cut out faces or, have this
visiting in
disconnected
person
view.
as well.
Yeah. And being able to have an authentic, actual personal relationship. It's just, it's such a great, that our society has changed in dealing with this. But it's also really great that you're out there willing to share it, because a lot of young girls find themselves in this situation. I actually have a friend that is contemplating adoption currently, and she's much older. And so, I think having these conversations are really important, and also for people to realize that there's not necessarily a right way to go about it, but you can find your own way through it, right?
Yes, 100%.
I love that you shared these people told you no, which is, I think we just never hear those stories.
We were all shocked to hear that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I love that what it triggered in you was okay, maybe I'm not going about this correctly, and maybe I need a little bit more guidance. But not that you did go back to church, but you weren't looking for guidance any longer in people anymore. It sounds like you were looking for guidance.
Or even your mom's own experience. Yeah. To find your own path.
Yes.
Because you were finding your own path, and you were actually starting to pray and ask for God to guide you.
Yes.
And then I love that in that doing, from out of another corner, in walked the people. I mean, it's just such a great story of trusting your inner guidance and your God.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, is I definitely see a lot of divine intervention in my adoption story, in my journey, from not being able to get jobs that paid us anything, that not
That
working
was
out.
almost, it sounds like that's so horrible. But when you were sharing that with me, I was thinking, Oh, yeah. The universe is not supporting this union.
Nope.
It is not supporting it in any way.
Sometimes those dead ends end up being just a quick way to find out that wasn't the right path.
Right.
And it's frustrating
Exactly.
at the time.
Yes.
So can you tell us what lessons of resilience have you learned in this? I know there's probably a million and you've shared several underlying things, but how would you put resilience into words and the lessons you've learned through this process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I just think it's, not being afraid of your experiences. We're all here on different life paths and journeys. So just not being so hard on yourself when you do make a mistake or when something does happen, and then, getting through it. I would say the biggest thing is there's this saying that I love. I don't know if it's ox or bison, but either one, when they see a storm coming, instead of turning away and running from the storm, they head straight onto the storm. And because they know that if they run straight onto the storm, they'll be in the storm for a shorter amount of time than if they ran away from it.
And it catches them. It's the bison.
Yes.
It's the buffalo. We
Buffalo,
sometimes say that, be a buffalo girl.
Yeah.
Yes, be a buffalo
girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that for me is
Because the storm's going to be there one way or the other. Do you want to
Yes.
run away from it and just drag it out, or are you going to take it head on? I love that.
yes. So it's
love
just
that.
take it head on, and then it's just really just learning from the experiences is what can you take away from that hardship or that hard thing that you had to go through in your life? What did you learn from it, and how did it help you grow? How did it make you stronger? Because almost everything that we go through and everything that we experience in this life is to make us stronger. It is at the end of the day. And so, yeah, just
So I haven't seen your Instagram page. Tell us what it is if listeners want to look it up, and what might you share there? What kind of things are happening there?
So on my Instagram and also my TikTok, I just share a lot just about of my open adoption experience, just the beauties of open adoption. I also like to share about just tips for hopeful adoptive couples, kind of just educating yourself, if you're wanting to adopt a baby, on the differences of open and closed adoption. Sure. I want to create just a community for girls to be able to come and just share about their experiences and also just to get support. So it's at Birth Mom Tribe.
It's
so
beautiful.
Yes.
It's really beautiful.
And what's your TikTok?
Birth Mom Tribe too.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just Birth Mom Tribe, and there
on
is
TikTok
a link.
or Instagram?
Both.
Yeah.
So yeah,
on
TikTok
both. Yeah.
and Instagram is Birth Mom Tribe. And I did just create a link tree, so it has a tab for our Facebook group I just started. So I really want to get more birth moms involved with having meetups.
Great.
Where we can all just kind of come together and talk about our experiences. We have about 10 girls right now that are in the group. We're planning our first meetup for the end of this month. So I'm super excited about that, to meet some of these beautiful women and to hear about their experiences too. And yeah.
I love the word tribe. I mean, that's what we need, right? We all have our tribe. We were talking about this. In fact, I read an article just over the weekend that was particularly to parenting and our people choosing to be parents. Are they choosing to have children? Are they choosing to have a family? And it listed a whole bunch of reasons why, kind of the common perception of why maybe young people don't want to have a family or don't want to have children. And it said, but really at the core of a lot of this is we've lost our sense of a tribe. And everyone's overwhelmed by the idea of being independent in all manners. And this was particular to raising children, but I think it applies to us just in life that we are so bent on self-reliance and even resilience. Here we are talking about resilience, but we misinterpret that as isolation. I have to be so strong that I can do this. I can face it. I can weather it. When the truth of the matter is no way and that might be another person who's gone through a similar experience, a stranger at the grocery store, someone that we can connect with. And Michelle, that's why we've created this podcast, right? For
that's
people
why I
to
have my book club.
Of
That's why I've done all these things.
we all need a tribe.
I moved to Utah. I was a convert. An outspoken, opinionated, honest person who speaks the truth, which is sometimes not the language of Utah. And I never really felt a part of any tribe. And so I often would create my own. I love that you're doing this. I did it when I was in the natural childbirth world. I created book clubs for people to come together. I did free childbirth education classes, and you do create a tribe of women that will come to you and that will be, you will benefit from their support and they will benefit from yours. And it's just such a beautiful thing. So I'm excited to see this develop and grow.
Me too.
It's
I'm
awesome.
so excited.
And it's going to happen. I'm quite sure of it.
I am too.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming on.
Such a tender story and so beautiful.
And
Thank you,
I hope
guys.
that there will be those that listen to this that will reach out and connect with you. So
Yeah.
I would love
And
that.
find that tribe.
yeah.
Find that tribe. If you're listening, we hope that you'll give us a like, a rating, and a review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps us get the show out to other people, but also helps us know how to improve it. And as always, we invite you to consider sharing a story or an experience you've lived through that's helped you develop tools of resilience so that you can help the rest of us. You can find us on Facebook at Relentlessly Resilient or Instagram at Relentlessly Resilient Podcast. There's a quick little button you can click to talk to Michelle offline and go over what you might share with us and with our listeners so that together we can strengthen that tribe and be able to have even stronger tools of resilience because, as you said, life is hard. The whole purpose of it is to strengthen us, to help us become better. But man, sometimes it feels like the hard way. So let's do this together.
Yes.
And as always, thank you to our producer, Kellyanne Halverson, and to our sponsor, Minky Couture.
Remember, whatever you do today, remember to be kind. You have no idea the struggles others are dealing with in their life. Have a great day.